Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my really great pleasure to have Ambassador Watte, Walawwe, Tissa, Wijeratne from Ambassador of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. Actually, we do not know very well about this country, but from the last year, 2011, the KUGSIS, Colloquium School of International Studies, under my leadership, has been involved in a project which is called the KSP, Knowledge Sharing Program. This year we are doing 2 projects, but last year we have started as the first university in Korea to conduct development work under the program of KSP, Knowledge Sharing Program. And I was fascinated with the country when I visited the first time this July. And therefore, I wanted to have ambassador for a long time, actually, from the last year. But we could not coordinate the exact timing. But he finally made it to our university, and it is my great pleasure and honor to have him here. Ambassador Wijeratne is talking about Sri Lanka on its road towards social and economic development, challenges and opportunities. I think you can earn a lot new knowledge on the new world, or new part of the world, right? So I think you can have a very constructive and very informative session with him. Why don't you give him big hands?
아이보wan 안녕하세요, 여러분. So first of all, thank you very much, Professor Sun Hoon Park, for your kind remarks about me. I'm honored to be here this evening. Thank you very much for inviting me to share my thoughts about my country, Sri Lanka. The topic of this, my topic is Sri Lanka on its road towards social and economic development, challenges and opportunities. I think most of you have not been to Sri Lanka. Can I ask you first whether anyone has been to Sri Lanka? Yeah, no one. Yes, I think, yes. So I think I would like to explain to you about my country first. In ancient times, Sri Lanka was known by a variety of names, known as Ceylon. I think you have tasted Ceylon tea. Ceylon tea. Ceylon tea is Sri Lanka tea. Black tea is Sri Lanka tea. So Sri Lanka is the largest exporter of Ceylon tea to the world. So in the ancient times, Greek geographers called it Taprobane, and Arabs referred to its as Serendip. So, and Portuguese, they named as Seilau. And when our country was under British rule, they named Sri Lanka was known as Ceylon. So our country gained independence in 1948. I would like to, before I go to my topic, I just want to tell you about Sri Lanka. I think everybody is aware that Sri Lanka suffered terrorist problem for 30 years. Until May 2009, Sri Lanka was embroiled in a 3 decades long terrorist conflict against the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, better known as the LTT. Banned in several countries, including the United States of America, the LTT was one of the most ruthless and most sophisticated terrorist organizations in the world. It had 2,000 battle-hardened cadres in the ranks, including child soldiers and suicide cadres, a vast amount of advanced weaponry, and a sophisticated naval wing and fledgling air wing. So, now I would like to go to my topic. There are 5 objectives. I am going to explain to you about Sri Lanka. I am going to explain to you about economic development and its challenges, why invest in Sri Lanka, opportunities, key sectors for investment, bilateral relations between South Korea and Sri Lanka. About Sri Lanka, the location, population, economy, and brief history. The location. Sri Lanka is located in the Indian Ocean, about 20 miles from southern tip of India. It is located in a very strategic place. I think you can see South Korea is also located there, and Sri Lanka off the southern coast of Indian subcontinent, and area is 65,610 kilometers. Square miles 25,000 to 25,000. The capital city is Sri Jawadhanapura Kotte. Our parliament is located in Sri Jawadhanapura Kotte, and also other administrative buildings also located in that area, and the commercial capital is Colombo. Colombo is, I think you know, Colombo is has more, I think, popular city. And the people, you know, our population is 20 million. 20 million here, in Seoul 10 million, but in South Korea is 50 million, but our population is just only 20 million. And there are 3 main ethnic groups: Sinhalese 74%, Tamils 18%. Tamils mean there are 12% Tamils living in the north of the country, and 6% of Tamils living in the hill country. This 6% of Tamils were brought to Sri Lanka by British when they introduced tea plantation to Sri Lanka. So then the Muslims, the 7% of the population. There are three main languages. The Sinhala, I think majority of the people speak Sinhala. Sinhala is our main language and also official language. The Tamil also official language. We have two official languages, Tamil and Sinhala. And English is linked language. English is widely spoken in Sri Lanka everywhere. And the religion, the Buddhists, the 70% of the population are Buddhists. Hindu, about 13%, the Islam, 10%, Christianity, 7%. So this is His Excellency, the President of Sri Lanka. He was elected first in 2005 by the majority of votes, and also for the second time he was elected in 2010 as the President of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka. The economy, so I am going to explain to you about our economy. We have very strong economic performances, have lifted the country's per capita income and gained middle income status from the list of poverty reduction and growth trust eligible countries. The GDP has been increased, for 59 billion US dollars. Per capita is 2,877 per capita. So I just want to mention to you about this economic progress in Sri Lanka. Despite the Sri Lanka's almost 3 decades of civil war, the devastating and also the 2004 tsunami, I think everybody is aware that tsunami in 2004, Sri Lanka was destroyed by tsunami. 40,000 people were killed and several 100,000 houses were destroyed, and very big disaster in 2004. And also the 2008 global financial crisis. Due to these reasons, economic growth has experienced, because we had to obtain IMF loan because due to the reasons. So although there were so many difficulties, Sri Lanka was able to maintain the growth, GDP growth, around 5% in 2008, and in 2010, 7.5%, and I think in 2011, 8%. And per capita, GNP also has been increased to 2,800. Economic indications, now you can see the inflation. It has been reduced. In 2005 it was 11, and in 2011 it has been reduced to 7. And also unemployment rate has been reduced from 7.2 to 4.2. And Sri Lankan exports. Sri Lanka, the Ceylon tea is acclaimed as the best tea in the world. And third largest producer of tea. India is number 1. India is the largest producer of tea, and China, and Sri Lanka is number 3. But Sri Lanka is largest exporter of tea today, because I think 9% of the tea, I think, export. And other export includes garments, rubber and products, coconut, gems and jewelry, handicrafts. And by 2016, the economics say that GDP will be around 8%, and the per capita will be increased up to US$ 4,000. And the tourism now around 1 million, the tourist arrival in Sri Lanka is at the moment is, last year it was around 1 million. It will be increased to 2.5 million by 2016. Over 10 sectors contributing over 1 billion in export earnings. Then exports to be 20% of GDP. Currently is 18%. The private investment around 22 to 24% of GDP. Currently 18% to 19%. If foreign direct investment to be around 5% GDP, currently about 2%. IT literacy rate to be over 75%, currently around 30%. The 2 international airports and 5 international seaports. Now we have only 1 international airport. We are going to open second new international airport in December this year. And the brief history of Sri Lanka. Now we have mentioned about the majority of Sinhalese, majority of the population are Sinhalese, because they came from central India for 500 BC. And Sri Lanka was captured by Portuguese in 1505, Portuguese, because Sri Lankan coastal areas were captured by Portuguese, and they ruled our coastal areas until 1658, the Portuguese. Then secondly, the Dutch captured land and ended the rule of Portuguese until 1796. So the British came. Thirdly, they captured our whole land, the coastal areas, as well as whole the country was captured by British in 1815. And 1948, we gained independence from Britain, 1948. So last year we celebrated 64th anniversary of our independence. 1972, we changed the name of Ceylon to Sri Lanka. Ceylon, Sri Lanka, because we introduced new constitutions in 1972. So then the government wanted to change the name from Ceylon to Sri Lanka. Sri means is a bright or venerable, or Lanka means the island, Sri Lanka. So 1983, the civil war started between the Tamil terrorist group and the Sri Lankan government forces. In 2009, civil war ended. So 30-year civil war. So this is very important, because after the independence we obtained from Britain, the 64 years, half of that period were under very serious problems due to this civil war from 83 to 2009. The terrorist conflict against the liberation tigers of Tamil. So they wanted the 1/3 of the land of the country, but the Tamil population was around 12% of the population, but they wanted 1/3 of the country and they wanted to establish a separate state. So that the later, because we had so many peaceful talks with these LTT terrorist groups, with the assistance of India, Norway, and United States and so many countries, but we were not able to succeed. So that LTC, and then attacks, they used to attack every day. Suicide attack was introduced by Tamil tigers, suicide. So there were so many peace talks with the help of international mediation, but not succeeded. In May 2009, the war ended after successful humanitarian operation. But even we succeeded defeating terrorist group, we have to face with a number of significant post-war challenges. Today, I just want to mention about the current situation in Sri Lanka today. Today, Sri Lanka is a country with peace. There is no attack, suicide attack, no violence, because during the civil war, our central bank was destroyed. It was attacked. Our commercial institutions were attacked. Our civilians were attacked. Their own leaders were killed. So there was so many big problems during that time. But today, I am very happy to note that there are not a single incident after 2009, not a single, because all terrorist leaders were killed at the battle. So now we have lifted the travel, so many countries restricted traveling to Sri Lanka and transport Sri Lanka. But everything has been lifted now. No country is putting restrictions or any problems on Sri Lanka today. And people live without any fear and suffering brought on by war. Then so many Sri Lankans were migrated during the civil war, including Tamils. So many Tamils left the country because so many Tamils were attacked by terrorists, because they were very innocent people, peaceful. They wanted to live in Sri Lanka peacefully, but they were not allowed by terrorists because they had to leave the country. Now, after the war, they were returning to Sri Lanka, and they returned to Sri Lanka, I think. And there is a freedom in Sri Lanka today. But we have a lot of work to do on humanitarian grounds and also economic development. So economic development now, Sri Lanka is now planning to build the country for its future generations, to bring back normalcy to the areas formerly under LTT control, because there were so many areas which was under the LTT control, were not developed, because that all the areas were destroyed and the roads were destroyed, the hospitals were destroyed, schools were destroyed. We have to rebuild all this infrastructure, development. So Sri Lanka is now being transform Sri Lanka into an economic hub by taking advantage of its strategic location and resources. And the challenges to economic development. So 3 decades of civil war, balancing resource mobilizations while fighting the war against terrorism, and rebuilding infrastructure. Recently, nearly 300,000 internally displaced persons. This, I would like to explain about these 300,000 people, how they were displaced due to this civil war. So nearly 300,000 people were kept as human seals by LTT at the final stage of war. 300,000 people. At the final stage of war, they were kept as human seals by the terrorist group. So the Sri Lankan army wanted to rescue them. So there was a humanitarian operation by Sri Lankan army to rescue these 300,000 people. Finally, the terrorist group was defeated and they rescued 300,000 people from the terrorists. So now in the north and east, totally free, because it was under LTT. Nobody is allowed to travel to that area. And schools, hospitals were not able to function because a lot of restrictions and orders by this terrorist group. So now we have restored the democracy in the north and east, promoted the economic activities are going on every day. The disarming armed groups, there were several armed groups and they were disarmed by the Sri Lankan government. Rehabilitating thousands of ex-LTT members and reintegrating them to the society. So around 15,000 ex-LTT members, they surrendered to the army. Now I think most of them have been already released and they have been sent back to their original places. There are only few ex-LTTs now in the rehabilitation centers. So I think now everybody is now happy and they go back to their homes. Then the global financial crisis in 2008, that also, the Sri Lanka was affected by this also, and we had to obtain IMF loan, and also we have to obtain so many assistance, economic assistance from so many countries, including South Korea. I am very happy to note that this professor also involved with some development projects in Sri Lanka at the moment. So I appreciate very much your contribution to Sri Lanka to develop our economy there. So now the extreme poverty was augmented by millions and caused a rise employment and debt. And now addressing the challenges, Sri Lanka's development strategy. Now we have to give priority to so many things. The infrastructure development is very important. because now we have to build, we have to construct new highways, new roads, and we have to build hospitals, we have to build schools, so many things we will have to do, and also empower citizens, encourage investment for economic growth, and we have to give priority to the government has already initiated some plans to rebuild these roads, and especially the resettlement of internally displaced persons. Then the access roads, the minor tanks, public buildings, hospitals, schools, following expand development to other areas. So we can see that the northern province of Sri Lanka, because now we have identified so many areas to develop. You can see that the areas which was held by Tamil Tigers, now all these areas have to be developed, and so many countries, the United States and EU, Japan, Korea, India, China, they are highly involved with and contributing to Sri Lankan development at this moment. And infrastructure development, restoration of railways, because the railway system was completely destroyed by LTT during the Civil War. So from Colombo to Jaffna, the railroad was not functioning for 30 years. So now they are building new railroads in Sri Lanka. India is highly involved with this railroad constructions, and also ports upgraded and expanded. China is highly involved with to build new ports in Sri Lanka. The Hambantota port and also the international airport in Hambantota is actually being constructed by Chinese government at the moment. And also Indian government also highly involved with the development in the northern province. So then infrastructure development, this water supply, we have to upgrade the water supply to agricultural and farming. We have to improve drinking water supply and sanitation and electrification expansions. We have to, and also communication and IT networks, we have to upgrade. Then private sector organizations have set up operation in the north, including financial institutions, supermarkets, boutiques and shops, because in the north and the eastern provinces was neglected for 30 years. Now the private sector, government has invited private sector to involve with this development activities in the north and east especially. So, and also urban development, and now we have to learn from Korea that a lot of I think groups coming to Korea, especially from the Economic Development Ministry, to learn about Sema Lundong. Here, so we are actually getting so many information and learning from Korea how to build Sri Lanka with the assistance of Korea. So better housing facilities for people living underserved settlements, public open spaces, parks, walkways, and walkways here is everywhere. So you can, in the evening, we can, I think it's for the health is very important. So I have seen so many people here, they walk in the evening. There have been, I think, a lot of separate walkways have been created here. So it is very good thing to, help Sri Lanka. And also investment in Sri Lanka by companies. Now a lot of hotel chains is coming to Sri Lanka. The Shangri-La, the Sheraton, and so many hotel chains are now building in Sri Lanka. And also high quality urban spaces will provide knowledge workers, highly qualified professionals. So empower citizens, attention to social development needs, deliver sustainable and citizen-centered programs. So the equality because Sri Lanka is giving equal treatment to in the society, because Sri Lanka is the first country in the world who produced first woman prime minister. Sri Lanka is 1960. So she was a housewife. She was elected as a first woman prime minister in the world, Mrs. Sirima Bandaranaike. Mrs. Sirima Bandaranaike, she was so famous, so her international affairs was excellent. Although she was as a housewife, when she handled the international affairs, it's very, it was recognized by world leaders. The first, I think in 1976, during her period, the non-aligned movement, non-aligned conference was held in Sri Lanka. So over 100 leaders from all over the world came to Sri Lanka for that conference. So during Mrs. Bandaranaike's time, when she was Prime Minister, she had very close friendship with China, India. China, then the Mao Zedong, Chou En-lai, and also Indian leaders, Indira Gandhi or Sri Jawaharlal Nehru, and Yugoslavia, then the Marshal Tito, in Egypt, Anwar Sadat. I think a lot of all popular leaders were very closely working with this lady. So when there was a war between China and India in 1962, there was a border dispute between India and China. So Mrs. Bandaranaike was the leader of this peace delegation to both countries. She traveled to China and met with Chinese leaders, and she traveled to India and met with Indian leaders, and she solved this dispute between China and India. So both countries today highly recognize this lady, Mrs. Bandaranaike. So we produced, then after we produced this first woman prime minister, so many countries followed that. India also produced Indira Gandhi as the leader of India. So I think next month, I don't know whether Korea also will elect the lady. we don't know exactly. It is up to the people of Korean people will decide. Anyway, so anyway, now this former, now I can go back to this former members of LTT. Now we have given all the help to the LTT former leaders of LTT now. They have been rehabilitated, and the government provide them funds for self-employment, setting up some businesses, vocational training, employment by private enterprise, including garment factories, industrial facilities, recruitment into the civil defense forces. So, Sri Lanka is the first country actually who rehabilitated terrorists. Almost 15,000 terrorists were rehabilitated by Sri Lankan government. Now some of them entered the politics also. Now some of them became ministers in the government, the former LTT leaders. So, and also now we have a big challenge to eradicating poverty and cornerstone social development policies in Sri Lanka. And also I would like to mention about Mahinda Chintana, vision for the future. The Sri Lanka's key policy document is, has been named under Mahinda Chintana to combat poverty within the MDG framework, Millennium Development Goals. So promotes the self-employment, provides financial and technical assistance to youth and women in rural areas, including those who suffered from the terrorist conflict. So distribute 4% of the GDP to qualifying households to provide education, health services, food subsidies, food stamps and subsidized credits. So under this policy, the Mahinda Chintana, the government is doing very hard to help the people. So the results so far. So during last 3 years after the end of the war, so we have resettled the displaced persons. 300,000 internally displaced persons have been resettled almost. There is not a single person now. And also we reintegrated ex-LTT combatants by implementation of social and educational programs, reintegrated. So, and also the demining, I think 97% of the demining success now. Over 1 million demined were there, and now 90% have been cleared now. Then poverty level declined from 15% in 2005 to 7.6 in 2011. So per capita income has been increased from 1,006 in 2004 to 2,836 in 2011. The GDP growth rate, 8% was achieved in 2011. So Northern Province recorded 27 GDP growth in 2011 because the foreign aid, we are getting foreign aid, 90% of foreign aid goes to north and eastern provinces, which was neglected by the civil war. So now all foreign aid going to that areas. And also, so export, this growing in the agricultural and fisheries sector is now developing very fast. And also unemployment rate is lower, standard of living is above average, average income is higher, tourism has increased, investment have increased. Most importantly, Sri Lanka has finally achieved peace, stability and freedom for 30 years of war. Why invest? Now the very important subject is investment. Investment is every country is giving priority to investment, and every country is inviting everyone to come to their countries. Now, why invest in Sri Lanka? Workforce, we have to explain about workforce, location and connectivity, access to key markets, investment protection and double taxation, vibrant business environment. And workforce, we have workforce first class competitive resource. Literacy rate is above 90%. because we have a lot of young people who are talented people. But in South Korea now, over around 25,000 Sri Lankans people are working here in the companies in South Korea. And we have well-educated and adaptable workforce, high trainability ratio, and skilled and semi-skilled human resources are readily available at competitive wage rates. And location and connectivity. And the location, I think you can see how the Sri Lanka was located and how it is connected to mainly to the Europe and South Asia and Middle East and other countries in the east part of the world. So we have strong air connectivity with over 100 weekly flights to India alone, 100 weekly flights to India alone, and connected to this also Southeast Asia, Middle East, and also Western Europe, and also these fiber optic communications, backbone with over 11 communication satellites orbiting about the south of the country. And access to key markets. Sri Lanka is only the country with free trade agreements with India and Pakistan, giving duty-free access to over 1.3 billion consumers. Sri Lanka is the only country with free trade agreements with India and Pakistan. So I am not going to explain about Pakistan, India. So I think everybody is aware the very important two countries. And into Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement, we provide strategic access through Sri Lanka for over 4,200 products. Because there were some investors in Sri Lanka, they want to produce things and export to India and Pakistan. So you don't need to go to Pakistan and India with investment. You can go to Sri Lanka with your investment and produce your goods and export to India and Korea, no duty free. Actually, they were at zero duty. So Pakistan also provides strategic access through Sri Lanka for nearly 4,500 products, duty free from 2008 to the Pakistan market. So investment protection, double taxation, safety of investment and guaranteed by the Constitution of Sri Lanka, the bilateral investment protection agreements with 26 countries including South Korea. And similarly, Sri Lanka has also bilateral double tax relief agreements with 38 countries. Vibrant business environment, Sri Lanka is ranked as the most liberalized economy in South Asia. I just want to explain to you one thing. The former president of China, Jiang Zemin, I think you have heard about, I think, some Chinese students here. I think Jiang Zemin, when he was the mayor of Shanghai in 1978, he visited Sri Lanka when he was as a mayor of Shanghai to learn about free trade zone, because Sri Lanka is the first country in Asia who introduced free trade zone concept. So the China visited a Chinese leader who was a former president of China. When he was the mayor of Shanghai, visited Sri Lanka to learn about free trade zone. So now China has introduced free trade zones all over the country. So also, I just want to remind you, Lee Kuan Yew, former leader of Singapore. He also visited Sri Lanka in 1950s to learn from Sri Lanka. He wanted to create a country like Sri Lanka in 1950s. Sri Lanka was second richest country in Asia in 1950s, next to Japan. So that was 1950s. So anyway, now transparent investment laws have been to encourage foster foreign direct investment in the country. We have introduced new laws to encourage investment, and also concessions granted for qualifying investment projects under an agreement with the Board of Investment remains valid over the lifetime of the enterprise. So the private sector, the government is encouraging private sector, and Sri Lanka's investment policy environment, total foreign ownership, because whoever invests in Sri Lanka, he will be given all the assistance, and total foreign ownership is permitted across all areas of the economy, and no restrictions on repatriation of earnings, fees, capital, and for transactions relating to current account payments. Safety of foreign investment is guaranteed by the Constitution. Sophisticated legal and regulatory framework covers all the prerequisite business law enactments. Government follows and incentivizes investment promotion strategy. The opportunities, key sectors for investment. Key sectors for investment are non-traditional goods, apparel, textile, handlooms, and local gift industries, cosmetic industry based on local herbs and medicinal plants, oriented services, knowledge-based services, infrastructure projects, and urban infrastructure and commercial housing, higher education, skill development, IT and IT-enabled services, agriculture and fisheries. The technology. Technology is the most important thing to Sri Lanka. Now, the government encourages investment in priority sectors, especially focus on advanced technology and value addition. Number of Sri Lankan companies that have already made the mark internationally by developing highly acclaimed software products. Software engineers and IT professionals who developed these products were trained in Sri Lanka. And with that background, this is a sector that can go very far. So then we'll come back to our tourism. This tourism actually is one of the major areas to develop Sri Lanka. Lonely Planets named Sri Lanka as the world's #1 travel destination for 2013. Now we have 250 acres of botanical gardens, 15 wildlife and nature reserves, miles of pristine beach and abundant nightlife. Then the best the food food available in Sri Lanka, and world-class shopping, theatre, cafes, art, host of star-class hotels. Many tourist-related projects, local and foreign investors are eager to exploit this opportunity. So I'll come back to the bilateral relations between Korea and Sri Lanka is very important. It is, if I don't mention about both countries' relationship is not, good there. So that I would like to mention about this, the bilateral relations between two countries, and our President, His Excellency Mahinda Rajapaksa, he visited here at the invitation of President Lee Myung-bak in April. So during the visit, he held summit talks and with the President and also with the senior officials here, and we signed bilateral agreements between two countries, cooperation in the area of information, economic development, technical assistance in power and energy. So that during the visit, our president met with a large number of business people here in Korean business people. The 3 business forums were held, 2 business forums were held in Seoul, and 1 business forum was held in Busan. So it was very successful visit, and our president came to this country. He was the first head of state from Sri Lanka in 16 years. So it was a historic visit, a very important visit, and we were able to promote both countries very closely. And Sri Lanka, Korea is enjoying very friendly and cordial relations at the moment. So this now the problem, I think most of Koreans complain that Sri Lanka is very far, so we can't travel. So we would like to travel very neighboring countries here. So now the Korean Air is going to start their direct flight to Colombo next month, middle of next month. So for the first time, because even Korean Air is now identified Sri Lanka is one of the best places to travel. So now, earlier we used to travel to Sri Lanka via Singapore. So 2 hours transiting in Singapore, and if you go via Bangkok, you have to be in Bangkok airport for 10 hours. So in Malaysia also 7 hours. So now if you travel to Colombo from Seoul, it takes only 7.5 hours, direct flight. So that I think it's very big thing, and it will be very useful for both countries to closer to each other. So now this Sri Lanka now has been identified so many now Marco Polo. According to him, it is undoubtedly the finest island in the whole world. So long time ago, this Marco Polo said that. And also New York Times, April in 2010, and stated that number 1 of the 30 best places to visit in 2010. And National Geographic, they mentioned number 1 of the 6 best places to visit in 2010. And then Condé Nast Traveler, December 2011, they mentioned about one of the hottest places to visit in 2012. So I would like to thank you everybody for listening to me. So this is I think
thank you very much for
brief
your
introduction about Sri Lanka. Thank you very much.
Ambassador, thank you very much for your very interesting and informative lecture. I think our students would have some questions on your lecture, so that I'd like to invite the students.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. My question is, as far as I know, Sri Lanka...
Can you speak up and closer to the microphone?
Okay. My question is, as far as I know, Sri Lanka's textile industry is considered to be one of the major industry of the country. And can you give us some more information about it? And for example, what do you produce and where do you export them? Thank you.
So can I...
Textile industry.
Textile?
Yeah, textile industry.
Oh,
what
yes,
you produce.
yes,
yeah.
right. Yeah, so Sri Lanka actually is basically an agricultural country, because earlier, our major exports were tea, rubber and coconut. Tea, rubber and coconut, natural rubber. the Ceylon tea and natural rubber and coconut products. But now it's a garment, textile is number one. So the ready-made garments and I think world famous companies, Marks and Spence, and so many big companies from England and from US, they have started their companies in Sri Lanka, their factory. They produce the first class, ready-made garments. And textile is number one in Sri Lanka now. I think because there are so many reasons for the textile, to develop this textile because we have very talented young workforce in Sri Lanka. So I think a lot of countries like our people and very educated. I think because of that, I think textile industry is growing very fast. Thank you very much.
Let's have a looping.
Thank you for your presentation. We can saw from the PPT that Sri Lanka opened a lot of sectors to investment, including its agricultural sector. So I have a questions about this. How does Sri Lanka do to keep its economic security and independence from the investment?
So I am not very clear. That
So the question, Ambassador, question is Sri Lanka would like to attract a lot foreign direct investment.
Yes.
But increasing foreign direct investment could make Sri Lanka more dependent on other countries. So what is the policy direction of Sri Lankan government to have the economic security? Right? That's your question, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, okay. So thank you very much. Yeah, I think the government is encouraging investment in Sri Lanka. Mainly because now I just want to tell you this, in 1980s, the Korean investors were number one in Sri Lanka, Korean investors, because there were more than 125 projects owned by Koreans in 1980s. So today the Korean investors are the number 9. So India, China, Malaysia, and so many other countries, Singapore and so many countries now doing very well. But so many Koreans, they had to leave that, leave Sri Lanka. They had to close some, investment due to the problem, terrorist problem, the civil war. So now after after the civil war, after 2009, no need to worry about our problem. There's no problem about the security. Everybody is looked after by the government. Now they have been protected by the government investment laws, and I think it is, according to the constitutions, they are highly protected. So no need to worry about it. Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chung.
Thank you for the presentation. After 2004 tsunami, is there any organizations or foundations set to respond to any of the damage control or any further disasters if anything happened?
Yeah, in 2004, because we never expected this tsunami in 2004. So that was the first time it was happened in Indonesia, actually the earthquake, and it was affected so many countries. Sri Lanka was one of the major countries. The 40,000 people, I explained to you earlier that 40,000 people were killed, and over 100,000 houses were destroyed, and over 1 million people were displaced. So many problems. But within 2-3 years, so we settle all the problems with the help of the foreign countries. So many foreign countries came forward, so many people all over the world came and helped Sri Lanka. So we were able to solve all the problems within 2-3 years. So the roads were damaged and hospitals were destroyed, schools were destroyed. So we had to rebuild the country. So after that, not a single incident. So thank you.
So let's come back to this part, Nodayon.
Thank you for your presentation. Which countries is most aggressive to
We
cooperate?
cannot hear you. Can you bring the microphone?
Which countries is most aggressive? Countries is most aggressive to cooperate to develop Sri Lanka. For example, as you mentioned before, if Sri Lanka plan to make urban planning or infrastructure development, I think it is necessary to relate it with other countries to develop Sri Lanka together. So is there some connected other countries or cooperated friendly countries, not only Korea?
Sorry, I didn't get the real
Acoustically,
answer.
I could not get her
Sorry.
message. Why don't you speak up
Yeah.
more loudly so that everybody can hear you? It's very important because you would like to ask a question, but if nobody can understand you, speak up, speak up.
If Sri Lanka plan to make urban planning or infrastructure development, I think it is necessary to relate it with other countries to develop Sri Lanka together. So is there some connected other countries or cooperated friendly countries, not only Korea?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. That good question. Actually, no country in the world can do alone. Every country has to get help from each other. So I don't think no country, if you are going to do it you all alone, you will be isolated. So Sri Lanka is always asking help from each other, not only from Korea and China, India, of course. India is very close neighbor. India is a giant in the Indian Ocean. So United States also help in Sri Lanka. So they have a lot of projects in Sri Lanka. Europe, they have a lot of projects. All the countries, they have a lot of. China is highly involved with our development activities in Sri Lanka. And also United States is buying our 1/3 of our exports. United States. 1/3 of our exports go to United States, and other 1/3 to Europe. So the rest of the exports, we send it to Middle East countries and other. So we are actually getting support and cooperation from all over the world. So we are very happy to mention about this, and we always appreciate very much the friendship and cooperation between Sri Lanka and other countries. Thank you.
I can give you another indication what the dimension of the international cooperation with Sri Lanka is. If you visit the website of Korea University GSIS, you will have Professor La Sung-sup listed, right? And Professor La is currently working for ADB on leave from Korea, our department, and he is responsible for South Asia. And he said, Asian Development Bank is investing $1 to $2 billion every year to the especially human resource development projects in Sri Lanka. So it is really a very attractive country for cooperation, not only from other countries' perspective, but also from international organizations' perspective. 정민예, you had a question?
I'm Jinsan Oh.
You, Oh Jin-sun?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Minye is not here?
No.
Right. Yeah.
First of all, thank you very much for your presentation. I have a question. As you mentioned earlier about the ensuring the inequality between women and men, but since Sri Lanka is quite diverse country with like 4 or 5 different ethnicity and religions. So is there any like inequality problems or lack of cohesion within Sri Lanka community among the different ethnicities or religious people?
So problem of inequality, whether there are problems of inequality in your society in Sri Lanka.
There's no quality because
the ensuring equality was one of the main objectives of the government.
God,
Right.
no. I think the equal treatment will be given.
We have noted that Sri Lanka is a country of peace and reconciliation, right?
Reconciliation, yes.
Right. Yes.
Yes, that's right.
Because as Ecuador, we had a presentation about the Ecuador before, and there is a problem about the different ethnicity and problem about the cohesion.
we had-
So yeah, that's why I was wondering if there is some same problem in Sri Lanka or not. So, thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Let's come back to that part. Savara.
Thank you for your presentation. And you said that Sri Lanka has a free trade agreement with India and Pakistan. And as we know that in bilateral FTA that smaller country wins less than larger partner. And I'm wondering that it's that same situation in Indo-Sri Lanka FTA. Or it's positive and beneficial for both sides?
So your question is, Sri Lanka has FTA with India and Pakistan at the same time,
Yeah.
and small countries tend to gain from FTA.
Yeah, usually.
So is that the case in Sri Lanka's FTA with India and Pakistan? That is her question.
Yeah, actually, because India and Pakistan, or I think India is 60 times larger than Sri Lanka, because in the Tamil Nadu itself, the 70 million population, Tamil Nadu is the Chennai, that population is 70 million, Sri Lanka's population is 20 million. So that, this, I think, Sri Lanka invites every country to invest in Sri Lanka and produce their products, whether it is smaller or bigger. So, despite all this, question,
I mean,
and everybody is, I think,
if I'm allowed to have complimentary comments to ambassadors. I mean, that is true that small countries gain more from having free trade with the larger countries, right? But FTA, free trade agreement, is by definition win-win game. So that not only small countries like Sri Lanka compared to India and Pakistan, but also India and Pakistan have something to win Otherwise, they don't do any FTA. So that we can say for sure that two countries are winning at the same time. So let's come back here to Li In Tan.
Nice to meet you, Your Excellency. Just now, Your Excellency mentioned that Sri Lanka had to obtain loan from IMF. And as a fact, that Sri Lanka is actually a member in SAARC. It's the South Asia Association for Regional Cooperation. And my question is, actually, did SAARC help Sri Lanka when after the global financial crisis occurred? And what did Sri Lanka gain from SAARC? Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. It's a very important question. Sri Lanka is a member of the SAARC. There are 7, 8 countries, India, Pakistan, Bhutan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Maldives, I think, Nepal. I think they are countries, and but it is very hard to obtain 500 million loan from SAARC region, because they are also not able to provide these very big loans, because IMF is the low interest rates, and they are actually helping not only to Sri Lanka, to all of the world. So I think it's better Sri Lanka to obtain loans from IMF other than SAARC countries, because SAARC countries are also developing countries, not developed countries. So they are also having some economic problems and so many things. So the SAARC is not so able to assist with big loans.
Yes.
So that's why I think we are asking IMF loan.
I mean, here as well, I can give you some complementary answers. When there was Asian financial crisis, 1997, several Asian countries were affected by the crisis. And most of these countries were members of APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. And in APEC, there are developed countries, large ones, like US, Canada, Australia, Japan. Do you know, and are you sure that, did you hear about APEC providing immediate help to crisis-affected Asian countries? No, right? So this is not really very easy to get help when the countries are in crisis from international cooperation bodies, even if they do not have any commitments, legal commitments. In the Eurozone crisis we have, right? The countries are now helping, but they had some provisions that prohibited them to do, so that it took time to have this help. And there is, Ambassador, in 1997, international community was unable to provide immediate help to Asian countries, so that many countries resorted to IMF to get loans, as was done by Sri Lanka. And this was one of the main causes of increasing regionalism in East Asia. With the stronger commitment to themselves, the Asian countries would like to have really integrated and a strong community building, right?
And also, this the current financial crisis in Europe,
Yes.
and the Greece is used to get IMF loan.
Yeah.
So although it is in the EU,
Yes.
but it is.
So
that's
Greece
it.
is getting help from EU, but not only from EU, but also from IMF as well.
Yeah.
Right? So IMF was probably omnipresent when there was kind of financial crisis, you can say. So let's take one last Chen Wang.
Thank you for your presentation. My question is about the GDP growth. In 2009, the GDP growth reaches the bottom, it's 3.5%, and after that, it reached more than 8%. So what's the reason for the economic slump in 2009, and what's the driving force for the economic achievement after 2009? Thank you.
So the economic growth rate, economic growth rate was in the early 2000 years was quite low.
Yes,
3
yes.
point something,
Yes.
but it increased and increased to 7.5 and 8%
Yes,
2011.
Even, I thank you for asking this question. You know, even in 2005, our economic growth around 5% during the civil war. But although the war was there, the government was able to develop the country despite all these problems. So in 2009, the war was stopped. No war after 2009. So the country was free and everybody was very active after 2009. Because before 2009, everybody was very scared to participate in the economic activities. So because of the freedom, they got it after the war. So everybody's contribute to the economy. So export, you know, a lot of people wanted to produce more products, and the investors also came to Sri Lanka, and a lot of countries helped Sri Lanka. So, and the private sector was very active, the private direct investment and also private investment came from all over the world. So I think because of that, our growth, GDP has been increased, and yeah.
Ambassador,
Sorry.
would you like to take one last question from
Sure,
that side?
Yeah, sure,
That side
please,
was
yes.
some kind of neglected. Usungi?
Thank you for your presentation. You mentioned that after civil war, Sri Lanka makes effort to rehabilitate thousands of ex-LTTE members and reintegrate them to society. And I think it needs a lot of money. So I just wonder that Sri Lanka government, how could they afford these expenses?
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. So thank you very much. And Sri Lanka did it because the whole world wanted to know what Sri Lankan government will do for this LTT combatants. Whole world, the human rights organizations, and not only from, you know, even within Sri Lanka, we have Tamil leaders in Sri Lanka, Tamil political parties in Sri Lanka. So, and also because the government didn't want to kill people. So the government, what the government did was they wanted to, because they wanted to have peaceful talks with Tamil Tigers to find a political settlement to this issue. But they didn't want the peace. So many times they were invited, and India came forward, the United States came forward, Britain, Norway, so many countries came and they facilitated the even talks, and they met with Tamil Tigers several hundreds times to come forward for peaceful settlement, but they didn't come. So finally they were defeated by the Sri Lankan army. So that now they have to forget the past. So you know, if you want to go future, if you want to develop the country, if you want to have a political settlement, you need to understand the issues. So now what the government wants to do it everything peacefully with the, because we have to respect the Tamil people. Because this is not the, actually the only just 5% of the Tamil population became a terrorist group. Not all the Tamils, only just 5% of the small, extremist group of the Tamils. They became terrorists. Not the 95% Tamil people are very innocent. They want to find a peaceful settlement to this issue. For that, the government understand, the majority of the people also understand, so that what was actually, when they were surrendered, the ex-combatants, 13,000. So the rehabilitation, because the government wanted to rehabilitate them, not actually, we know that the expenditure is very, very high expenditure. So we have to start rehabilitation centers everywhere. There are hundreds rehabilitation centers. So we have to identify hardcore people. We have to identify, under all these categories, and India came to help Sri Lanka. United States and all EU and so many countries came forward and wanted to contribute to Sri Lanka to rehabilitate all these people. So not only that, the expenditure was not a big problem, and so so many countries helped Sri Lanka to rehabilitate these people. So everybody is now very happy in Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.